Your Majesties, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for returning. Trust you and yours are well, and you love yourself and others like always. Many thanks to all of you for the support you give to the channel. Thank you so much to our channel members, to our anonymous supporters, to all of you, my esteemed subscribers. You're loved, celebrated, and of course appreciated. GMO, we are here for GMO today again. GMO. And of course, as far as we're talking about GMO, we're talking about Bill Gates because it is he that is in charge. He is the chief in charge of GMO. GMO seeds, GMO whatever, it is Bill Gates Foundation. There is this advert that is going around on the internet. I don't know if most of you saw it, where he himself is letting everybody know that the USAID that was caught, he is going to advocate for it to be returned. And he painted Africans as the poor, wretched ones who need this USAID more than him, so that he can propagate his malaria, what have you. That they are dying of malaria and that he needs this fund, this USAID, to keep existing, so that those who are dying of malaria will not be dying of malaria again. So GMO and genocide violence in Africa. A lot of genocide is going on as we speak. Violence happening as we speak. And when you look into those who are involved in this, they tell you they are unidentified gunmen, or they tell you they are Fulani headsmen. And some of these Fulani men have come out to say that they are not the ones who are involved in this so-called genocide violence in villages, in countries in West Africa. And when you look at the pattern of the attacks, you discover that it is in villages. These people attack villages. They attack farmers and farm. So the target is those who are farmers in villages. Anywhere they know that these people, this group of people are predominantly farmers, what they do for a living is farming. Hectares, they are in charge of hectares of land producing food. These are the kind of people they attack. This is what is drawing the minds of Pan-Africans into this situation at this point. And what are we saying? Why is it that there is a pattern to this killing? There is a pattern to this destruction. It is villages and farmers. Farmland, those farmers in the villages are the ones that are always targeted. Farmlands are what is targeted. There are times you see cows go into hectares, destroy food, eat from the ground. And they make videos of this thing, post it online. People do not have anything to say. It's like this situation is beyond the powers of the African leaders. And this is why we always shout. Now, when you look into Burkina Faso at this point, Burkina Faso is into big time farming. You hardly hear of this again happening in Burkina Faso, because no nonsense is going on there right now. Those terrorists have been pursued. They are fighting them every day head on. You hardly hear of this happening there. And you saw how their harvest was last year and this year. Bountiful harvest, Your Majesties. So the target is on food and health. Why food? Why health? He who is in charge of your food is in charge of you. And he who is in charge of your medicine is in charge of, imagine you need to be alive and you need food to stay alive as well. So it's like the target is on the core. They want to destroy us on the core of ourselves, make us so vulnerable and weak so that we rely on them for everything. Recently in Nigeria, the middle belt part of Nigeria, a lot was happening as well. A region where they are predominantly farmers. They are mostly in charge of the food that the country even rely on. They are in charge of producing the food that the country have. The middle belt region of Nigeria. This was happening so intensely that almost every day, 20 farmers, 30 farmers are unalived. And the media was not giving the full amount. It was a youth that went to the region and they exposed everything. Everybody started shouting. And that was when the president of Nigeria, aka Jagaban, went there. And then there was something he said. And while he was there, or after he left, this so-called Fulani men made a video and said, whatever Tinubu came to do is his business, and they will still continue with their killing. And when you look into these people critically, you know that these are people who are paid to act like Fulani men and cause discord. So what they are doing is they act like Fulani men, and Christians begin to look at it like this is a religious fight. So they begin to push themselves head on. Oh, it's a religious fight. It's Muslims that are killing Christians. That fight is there. Already that has been existing. That hate has been existing. So they fuel it. You hate on yourself, you begin to kill yourself. Okay? Why in the real sense these are not Fulani men, but they dress like Fulani men? Because these same Fulani people have come out time without number to say that they are not the ones who are killing people in the bush. But because these people look like Fulani men, there was this discussion I brought here of a man who was explaining to us that these people are not even from, they are people that they brought from far countries, give them ammunitions to just go into villages, destroy their farms, kill the farmers, and go away. Now, when you look into the ammunition that these people are using, you understand that these are not just your regular Fulani men or women in the bush. These are ammunitions that are sophisticated. They are more sophisticated than the ammunitions that the local military, paramilitary use. So where did they get the money to get this ammunition? How did they know how to use this ammunition if they are not educated, if they are not learned? Where are they getting the supplies of this ammunition from? And how is it passing the custom? Is it passing the military checkpoints? How is it getting to these people? These are questions that people are asking. But up until this time, there is no answer for them. There will be no answer. I'm going to leave you with this discussion, and you leave your thoughts and opinion there at the section, Your Majesties.
U.S. congressional hearing at USAID. Congressman Scott Perry calls the stay in West Africa with the following comments.
Your money, $697 million annually, plus the shipments of cash funds madrasas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram. You are funding terrorism, and it's coming through USAID. And it's not just Afghanistan.
In the aftermath of his comments, a number of prominent Nigerian voices spoke up in support of Congressman Perry's remarks. One of these voices was former Nigerian Foreign Minister Bolaji Ekoyemi, who said this in a subsequent TV interview with Arise News.
I served on the Boko Haram committee. Villagers kept telling us that in the middle of the night, helicopters piloted by white people kept landing and offloading guns, goods, and money to these people. They have no reason to lie to us.
Many, however, have treated the story with skepticism because for the most part, the idea that the US government would knowingly and actively fund and equate with terrorists just seems unconscionable. Surely America is all about big business, science and technology, generous foreign aid, and sports, show business, and cowboys, and apple pie, and Times Square, and Mount Rushmore. Surely the idea that Uncle Sam would arm and fund some group of semi-literate Islamists calling themselves Boko Haram, which literally translates to books forbidden, to wreak havoc in some economically underdeveloped country on the other side of the planet is a silly, fanciful conspiracy theory, right? Well, no, it's not. How do we know this? Because minus the name Boko Haram, this exact scenario that I just described has happened before. I'm going to let former US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton explain in her own words.
When the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan, we had this brilliant idea that we were going to come to Pakistan and create a force of mujahideen, equip them with Stinger missiles and everything else to go after the Soviets inside Afghanistan. We did it because we were locked in this struggle with the Soviet Union. We did not want to see them control Central Asia, and we went to work. And it was President Reagan in partnership with the Congress, led by Democrats, who said, you know what, sounds like a pretty good idea. Let's deal with the ISI and the Pakistani military, and let's go recruit these mujahideen. And great, let's get some to come from Saudi Arabia and other places, importing their Wahhabi brand of Islam so that we can go beat the Soviet Union. And guess what? They retreated. They lost billions of dollars, and it led to the collapse of the Soviet Union. So there's a very strong argument, which is, it wasn't a bad investment.
This operation run by the CIA was codenamed Operation Psycho. It financed the creation of the Afghan Mujahideen before and during the Soviet war in Afghanistan between 1979 and 1989. The program specifically recruited Islamist groups to fight the Soviets, leaning on their ideological conviction. Now, I know some struggle to accept the notion that Uncle Sam would knowingly and deliberately arm Islamist terrorists, despite America supposedly being founded around Christian ideals and identity. So I'll let former US National Security Advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski, who personally visited and addressed the Mujahideen, to add a few words of his own.
That land over there is yours. You'll go back to it one day because your plight will prevail and you'll have your home, your mosque back again because your cause is right and God is on your side.
Now, for those who don't know, the creation of the Mujahideen to fight a proxy war against the Soviets was taken from a US foreign intelligence playbook, which has been used multiple times on multiple continents for similar reasons and with similar outcomes. It was used in Nicaragua when the so-called Contras were financed and armed by the CIA to fight against the country's left-wing Sandinista government. One of the byproducts of this engagement was the creation of Latin America's powerful drug lords who became wealthy enough to bully entire countries. In the case of Afghanistan, US support for Islamists resulted in Afghanistan becoming the world's first Wahhabi extremist theocracy. A crucible that simultaneously incubated both the Taliban and a handsome rich kid from Saudi Arabia who came to join the US-backed Holy War against the Red Army. His name? Osama bin Laden. You might know him as the founder of Al-Qaeda. Now, I know what you're thinking. I can understand why the US might have an incentive to do this in Nicaragua and Afghanistan, to fight communists. But why on earth would they do it in Nigeria? Who or what are they fighting in Nigeria? Once again, I'll let the US government answer that question in its own words. The following excerpts are the summarized takeaways from National Security Study Memorandum 200, also known as the Kissinger Report, a document published by the US National Security Council in 1975 during the tenure of then Secretary of State Henry Kissinger during the Gerald Ford administration. 1. Population of less developed countries, if it outpaces economic development, will likely create suffering and political instability. Instability that might be inimical to US interests. 2. The US relies on many of these countries for natural resources. 3. High birth rates may result in growth in younger individuals who come to oppose established governments if economic conditions do not support livelihoods. 4. American businesses and interests will become vulnerable to interference by governments in these countries, struggling to provide basic humanitarian support for rapidly growing populations. In other words, the rapid population growth of countries in Africa and the Global South, and Nigeria specifically mentioned, and the political and economic disruption that comes with having a larger population, are a direct threat to America's ability to keep cheaply accessing the raw materials and natural resources in those countries, which it is dependent on. The report went on to recommend a range of remedial action to ensure that people in countries on the other side of the planet do not have babies at a rate that the US government thinks will threaten the economic supremacy of the United States. For reference, Nigeria is Africa's most populous country and has been projected to achieve a population exceeding 400 million by 2050. Nigeria's gross domestic product is also estimated to hit $13 trillion by 2075, which will place it among the world's top 5 economies. Now, in the world of Henry Kissinger's nightmare, parts of the world that currently have the most natural resources and the least capacity to use them would have the population density and industrial capacity to make use of their own natural resources, which, needless to say, will completely upend the entire structure of the entire global economic system as we know it. So, if you're the government whose foreign policy is still driven by this Kissinger doctrine, what do you do to fight such an enemy? You obviously cannot physically murder 200 million Nigerians, and you can't nobody tell them that they must freeze their national ambitions or stop having children because you need their resources more than they do. So what do? You bust out the old US foreign intelligence playbook with a few modifications and you fund proxies to do it for you. These proxies will thoroughly destabilize entire swathes of the country, leaving them completely uninhabitable, so that people who live there will have to flee. They will make it impossible to carry out large-scale agriculture across most of the country, making the country food insecure and dependent on imports and solutions like GMOs with Terminator seed technology, which directly hands over the country's food security effectively into US government hands. So the US government gets to determine how many people get to eat and how many people get to die of starvation, and nobody suspects a fate. Very elegant solution to a very naughty problem. Now, I know after seeing all of this, some minds will still struggle to comprehend this depth and level of Malthusian strategic planning. And for those minds, I'll close with Captain Barbossa's famous words.